You are listening to the Banker's Secret Podcast, the Canadian guide to create a significant and positive impact on the financial success and everyday quality of life for businesses, individuals, and families. Building sustainable and dependable wealth, your host Glen Zacher has been serving Canadians since 2004.
Welcome to Talk to the Experts. Wayne Nelson with you, and my guest today is the founder and CEO of McGuire Financial, Glen Zacher. Now, Glen and his team have been educating business owners, professionals, and families right across Canada for more than 20 years. Back in 2008, McGuire Financial brought to Canada the strategy of becoming your own banker, the infinite banking concept. They've been educating Canadians on how to implement the banker's secret process so you can be the banker in your life on the you and me level. Now, McGuire Financial is the leading authority and implementers on this concept. So stay tuned as we'll be talking about how you can use the banker's secret to create your own private reserve of capital. Welcome back to the show, Glen.
Good morning, Wayne. It's so nice to be invited back to speak with your listeners again.
Well, it has been a few months since we've chatted. COVID-19 has certainly disrupted the lives of many of us, and we've been hearing from people who have concerns about how this pandemic has affected and continues to affect the stock markets and really the economy overall. Many people have seen their life savings evaporating as the stock markets continue on this roller coaster ride up and down. So how can we prevent that from happening? What should people do?
Well, Wayne, we've all been taught about how banks, money, and insurance works really from just one perspective, theirs. So how can you make the big banks work for you and not against you? So you work hard, you sacrifice to save, you risk your money in the stock market over your working lifetime, and you trust your bank to treat you fairly. But your bank strips away half of your lifetime investment returns and fees, and not realizing it, millions of Canadians are in precisely this same position. And person might be thinking, how does the industry pull this off? Well, the big Canadian banks, by extension, our entire financial industry, occupy a position of paternalistic authority. That to many individual investors respect unquestionably. And so the industry brilliantly, Wayne, capitalizes on the combination of really poor understanding of fees, deep loyalty, and misplaced trust by charging Canadians the highest investment fees in the world. And people will be saying, well, there's got to be a better way, right? Well, what if I told you there was a better way? By creating your own private reserve of capital and implementing the process. This is what we're excellent at. We teach people the process of the banker's secret so that you can be the banker in your life. That this is a time-tested and proven process that will create safety, security, peace of mind, and never, ever lose money to the stock market again. You'd say, Glenn, that just sounds too good to be true, wouldn't you? Well, the cell phone sounded too good to be true in the late 80s. People laughed and, they said, how is that going to work? And now everybody's got one. So, I like to say, Wayne, it's going to take a paradigm shift in people's thinking, and how they currently understand how money, banks, and insurance works. And the wealthy barber, taught Canadians the importance of saving. The banker's secret will teach you how, the importance of implementing a process that will give you safety, security, predictability of your money, and never be lost to the financial markets again. So, Wayne, recent studies and surveys, basically show that pre-retirees and retirees fear these 5 threats to their retirement finances the most. And with really good reason. If you ask yourself this, which of, these keep you up at night? Outliving your money? Second, market risk? How about tax risk? That's a big one. Here's a real big one. Healthcare costs, that are not covered by our healthcare system. Did you know that healthcare is going to be your single most expensive item you will have in retirement? And we don't even know the full effect that COVID-19 will have on future healthcare costs. And finally, government policy change risk. And what do I mean by that? What if your CPP and old age security benefits were changed? How does that impact your retirement? I like to say you don't have to be a volunteer to be a victim to, these retirement security threats, Wayne.
When you're talking about these online live sessions where people can learn about becoming your own banker, the infinite banking concept really works. Can you describe for our listeners, what is this infinite banking concept?
Infinite banking is a powerful savings technique that yields positive results through every stock market crash, real estate bubble, and recession known throughout history. And the best part is, this financial asset can be integrated with nearly every business imaginable. So infinite banking is one of the most powerful, guaranteed financial strategies out there, and people are quickly discovering how this financial vehicle provides velocity of money, uninterrupted compound interest, and how you can leverage money just like your bank does. So it's also a powerful savings technique, Wayne, in which an individual creates their own private reserve of capital by the means of owning a whole life insurance policy, and not just the kind of not just any kind of whole life. So one that is really designed to grow cash value daily. And most people are not aware, that this type of insurance coverage exists. And Wayne, we've been taught all through our lifetime that life insurance is for dying. What if you could spend your death benefit, while we're alive? How would that impact most people's lives? Probably a lot, and under this setup, you would theoretically never borrow money from a bank again. So our Banker's Secret online training, Wayne, is basically going to help people use this powerful tax-free strategy to enhance their retirement without market risk and also make it tax-free. So with the uncertainty of future tax rates, the tax-free infinite banking strategy will help people avoid, those future pitfalls. So I believe in that taxes in this country will probably continue to increase. If you take a look at the debt situation that's going on in the country right now, Wayne, would you think taxes are going up or down?
Well, somebody's going to have to pay the piper sooner or later.
Well, exactly. And, we all don't know what the tax laws, will be in place tomorrow. The ones that I know that are in place now are really set to sunset. So dividend-paying insurance is built on a foundation of guarantees. It's secure, and it's safe. And a lot of folks that been speaking to here for a number of years, are really kind of looking, for a segment of their overall portfolio, to kind of protect that. And here's some of the reasons why. I say that it's a guaranteed financial strategy that's built really on these four pillars. First, it's got guaranteed returns that grow year over year, irrespective of what the markets do, Wayne. Second, liquidity of cash, and it couldn't be more important, this year just by, having a pandemic. Thirdly, protection from market losses or protection from third-party claims, like creditors, lawsuits, even bankruptcy. And lastly, it's tax-free money now and in retirement, which will increase your cash flow.
So, Glenn, how does this best financial product really work then?
Oh, that's a great question. So we talked about, what the concept is. So I'm going to drill down a little bit on how does it really work. So this is where you're going to need a coach, and the answer, may seem simple, but first you must capitalize, meaning that we've got to put money into the system. The more money you put in, the greater it grows. And, we solve, through that by solving for people's financial objectives. What do we need money for? And second, you must collateralize. When you access policy loans, this money is not coming out of your policy, but from the life insurance company's pool of capital. Your policy is really just used as collateral or security. Think about, when you apply for a loan for your car, the bank takes the vehicle as security and grants you the money if everything lines up. And third, you must understand how to compound your money uninterrupted. This is a key principle here. So here's where it really gets interesting, Wayne. When you use your policy as collateral to access a policy loan, your money never leaves your policy, and all during the time of the policy loan and repayment, it compounds uninterrupted. So the secret is you must capitalize, collateralize, and pay it back so it compounds uninterrupted. And I know if we knew what we knew today, knew then, I could probably say, it's not magic. People might say, well, this is the best parking place for your money. Where else can your money grow? Tax deferred with guaranteed growth that you can access at any time, no questions asked. Tax free, and repeat the process, Wayne, again and again.
What does the federal government think about these strategies?
the fact that the federal government limits people on how much money one can put in a life insurance policy says what about it? Well, it must be good. More specifically, it must be good in relationship really to one subject. And what are they most concerned about? Taxes. So basically, the government decides the upper limit of the tax advantage growth that they would allow to go inside of a policy of this nature. And the policy holder still has access to the cash value. So we could call this like a maximum efficient system. So policies over and above this allowable amount are determined to be taxable. And there are some policies where a person can put money in over and above that, and of course, would be taxed just like an RSP with all the rules, regulations, and penalties that go with it. So,
Glen, what's the difference with this infinite banking concept? What's the difference with this structure and having ease of access to your money versus borrowing it from a bank? Can you expand on that for me? I mean, how the structure is so much different?
So having access to money has changed for a COVID-19 world. So lending standards have already surpassed the Great Recession levels of 2008. That's why knowing how to play the money game is a must, right? Especially now and for individuals and business owners, because, the rules are often counterintuitive. You can be locked out of access to cheap money through no fault of your own, just because you didn't know the rules of the game. So like your credit score can be damaged, even, if you pay all of your bills on time, and your credit score can plummet, 45 or more points just because you paid your bill, the wrong day of the month, for example. So, it's true. The rules set by banks and credit agencies don't always make sense and often don't seem fair. But you can beat the banks at their own game. When you learn the process of the banker's secret and implement it, more importantly, using this strategy, becoming your own banker, I'll teach you how to access capital and ditch the banks completely when you want to at our upcoming online training here, like you've already mentioned there on October 8th and 14th. And, the banks aren't the only game in town. This is, people have often wondered, is there another way? And really this strategy, Wayne, takes a little bit of time to capitalize and get ready. But once you do, you're just a phone call away from gaining access to your capital, when you create your own private reserve, of capital.
All right, Glen, let's pause right here because at this time, I would like to introduce your guest today, Steve Davidson. Now, before I turn on Steve's microphone, I'd like to tell our listeners a little bit about him. Steve and his family are Glen's clients, and they've been practicing the infinite banking concept for several years now. Steve attended McGuire Financials' first super conference way back in 2013, where Nelson Nash was the keynote speaker. Love that first name. Nash, by the way, was the person who actually created the infinite banking concept. Stephen, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So, Steve, when did you discover the banker's secret based on the concept of becoming your own banker? And this is a two-part question here. How long have you been practicing the process of the banker's secret?
Well, I think it was through a radio spot on this station, as I recall, but it definitely takes a little bit of time to sink in. And so I think it was late 2015 that we finally got things rolling and got into the implementation of the banker's secret. And since then, it's just been growing.
Okay, so you've been working with Glen and his team, let's say, for several years now. How are you using your banking system? Because it's now your banking system. You were the personal banker.
Yeah, once you get your head around it, it's definitely a bit freeing. I think when we started small with hockey camp here or gymnastics lessons there, just as their kind of yearly subscriptions almost. And as we went along, the system grew, and I got one son who has, let's say, some extra needs. So sometimes when your work benefit plan falls short, or you need a little bit extra free dollars available, I've dug in for things like braces or neurofeedback or other things which are like time sensitive. But in that process of getting funding, it was to just draw down on the reserves and the warehouse of my banking system.
So how has implementing the strategy changed your life then?
Well, it's definitely one of those things that once everything gets started, you can think back about, okay, well, I'm going to dig into this, I'm going to figure this out. And, I've been accused of, researching maybe a little bit too much for simple things like, cameras or phones. But in this case, I did the digging early on, ran the numbers, calculating inputs, rates, future values, and making sure that the system was kind of doing what it should. But once it became available and I got through, let's just say, all the reading material, the system proved solid. And as I expanded it, this is where leaning on it in just like times like these where it seems the world's flipped itself upside down and there are, let's just say, a couple extra changes to what one's employment or outlook might be. This is where the meetings you have with the friendly banker who may have seen house prices drop or various things not align with their little algorithm that sits on their web page that says, no, we are not going to extend any more dollars to you at this time. And so I've used the system to, pay off credit cards and do different things where rather than being beholden to an external bank, I'm able to use my own personal bank.
The Bank of Steve.
In maybe a little bit more flowery words, but yes.
So you've been very happy with the banker's secret and this process that Glenn introduced you to, this infinite banking concept.
Yes, it works very well as long as you don't neglect the bank.
All right.
In the sense of your personal bank.
Now, Glenn, if I could bring you on here, you've been educating and coaching clients just like Steve about this process for well over a decade. Can you share some of the fulfilling rewards about working with families like Steve's?
Yeah, that's a very good point, Wayne. I just enjoy, working with families like Steve's and, his wife and kids and stuff like that. We're very passionate, about our core values and aligning, with families like Steve's. And we really, the banker's secret, really it's to empower, people through education, Wayne. It's just, like Steve would attest to and like many of our clients, it's not a get-rich-quick scheme. It's, something that takes time to kind of build up to, like I mentioned earlier, build that private capital reserve. And, once we get that going, then like Steve mentioned, we're able to use it as collateral, lend money to yourself and, accomplish those financial objectives that, everybody has.
Initially, the cowboy proverb comes to mind that says you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. And I think in the early days when you're trying to digest it's a lot. And as you've probably well aware, a lot of people don't take nonstop finances classes in elementary, high school, or university. And so just the basics are sometimes take a bit of time to sink in. But, for those people who can't make their schedule work and have other priorities, I recommend just, in these uncertain times, just mark the calendar to, take a look at the next opportunity because these things do come around. And I had to miss, I think, some of the appointments early on when I just couldn't make it work. But, as you dig in and make opportunities to get the material and process it, those who can attend the webinar will not regret it. Because banking, as we all know, is a critical function in everybody's life, especially like we were saying earlier in times like these. And if you can build up that secure bank of funds in a proven system that you're the one in control, there are many good reasons to be the secure creditor of your funds and not the one cap in hand.
We've built a vault, of information over the last decade, 12 plus years, Wayne, and now we just want to share it with with everybody and on podcasts and YouTube, and have somebody be able to have some visibility on how you can be the banker in your life.
So when did you first discover the concept of becoming your own banker, the infinite banking concept?
Well, it doesn't seem like that long ago, and you've already mentioned it. McGuire Financial brought the concept of becoming your own banker back in 2008, and most people are just learning that for the first time, and that's right. My journey began actually in 2008 when I traveled to Las Vegas, of all places, to attend a 2-day conference. And there was about 300 people there, Wayne. And I brought one of my agents with me. And to my surprise, really my surprise, we were the only Canadians there. And, if there was ever a financial game changer, this is it. I wanted to know every detail on how this could, work in Canada. We've all attended things, outside or learned about it outside of the country. And people ask themselves, well, can it work here? It absolutely does. And, in 2009, we discovered a gentleman in St. Catharines, Ontario, named Bob Shields. He actually, great mentor friend of mine, wrote the book called "You Don't Have to Die to Win." What a great title. From there, in 2010, we met Ray Petit from Lawrence, Kansas, attended several of Ray's 3-day training sessions. And really it was at that time, Wayne, that we actually learned about Nelson Nash, really the pioneer and the founder of this concept of becoming your own banker. And, our journey continued. We discovered Nelson Nash later, actually, in 2011. And I actually attended one of his very first, think tanks, for us back in 2012. And, I could hardly wait to get there, along with a good chunk of our team. We went down and, today, it's history. We're the leading authority and implementers of this concept of becoming your own banker in Canada. And what we really love to do, is just educate, and coach business owners, families, professionals. And we've even trained, a number of of the insurance agents here in Canada as well, Wayne.
So you were first a student, and now the student has become the teacher.
Yeah, it's funny how that works, right?
It is indeed.
Absolutely.
Now, Glenn, people are always asking, why should I purchase a whole life insurance policy and borrow at a higher rate with a policy loan when I can get the money I need at my bank at a cheaper rate?
Well, there are major advantages to borrowing against a life insurance policy. And first, policy loans are easy to access. There's no credit score, no credit check, there's no application. When you're the owner of a policy, the life company takes instructions from the policy owner. Second, they're not included in credit, and because policy owners control a policy loan debt, the policy owner determines, the terms of the repayment and change it without needing approval. Wouldn't that be great? So what do we say, or what do we mean by that? That gives the policy owner total and absolute control of their money. And so this is one of the foundational principles, of embracing this concept, Wayne.
With all these advantages that we've talked about with this banker's secret, the infinite banking concept, what are some of the additional reasons why dividend-paying permanent insurance makes sense in this low interest rate environment? We've got housing mortgage rates as low as 1.79%. So with all these advantages that you have in this infinite banking concept, becoming your own banker, what are some additional reasons why this makes sense, the dividend-paying permanent insurance?
Yeah, good question. Nelson Nash, in his book, Becoming Your Own Banker, suggests that it's more efficient to build cash value in a policy for a period of time, really before an individual begins, borrowing against the cash value. So we call this the capitalization phase, really, Wayne. So, so since market interest rates are so low, a person, will have opportunities to access that capital at low interest rates as well, allowing the policy to build even more cash value, if it's structured properly. And speaking of structure, so when we put these together, we are not solving for death benefit. It's just the opposite of that. We are maximizing the efficiency of the cash that we're depositing in there to solve for those financial objectives. And, in this low interest rate environment, the performance of maximum funded whole life policy, Wayne, actually can quite compare favorably, to investments, such as GICs and, many, of the fixed income or bank savings plans out in the marketplace today. And, if we add in the presence of tax-free death benefit to the attractive cash value accumulation that's possible, dividend-paying, permanent insurance is a great alternative. And having access to capital allows opportunities, and really that just couldn't be, more apparent today. We've had so many so many clients use their systems, especially this year, given the ups and downs of, people working or not, whatever the case is. And, and I like to say that's why you need to have a coach. You've been working, really you got to work with an expert who understands how to put these structures to correctly, Wayne.
Now, I'm glad you mentioned that because earlier on the show, when we were talking with your client, Steve Davidson, and he said he's very happy with the infinite banking concept, but it took him a little while to sort of wrap his head around the concept. And once he got into it, really appreciates the fact that the folks at McGuire Financial help him along the way. They continue to educate him. They are coaching him. So are those the kinds of challenges and obstacles that people are going to have in trying to implement this strategy?
Oh, yeah, that's a really good one. So the problem that people are going to have is you're going to find it very difficult to implement this process yourself. You're going to find it's going to take a huge commitment, to implement all of this on your own. So this process, I know it sounds easy talking about it over the years, on the show, Wayne, but, this process is all about financing the things in your life. It's not about death benefit like I mentioned earlier, and knowledge doesn't necessarily mean understanding. In life, we're really conditioned to think one way on how banks, money, and insurance works. And, sometimes we have to go through the process, to learn new things. And I'd like to say is that you have to unlearn, the traditional things that we've been taught about banks, money, and insurance. And realize it or not, everyone is in the banking business, and at least for now, it's just that most people aren't good at it. And for whatever reason, you've been taught one way to do banking. We're going to teach you, and we do, another way to do banking. And that's what people are going to, grasp on our online training sessions, Wayne.
So it's really like what Steve said. You really have to wrap your head around it and continue to be educated.
Well, absolutely. I mean, if we think about this for a second, is that we've got to get out of our current environment, where your money is not working for you. And that's among many things. That's part of our problem. We're in an environment. It's just, it's going around and around and around. I mean, it's like the old adage said is, it could be another definition of insanity is just doing the same things over and over again. And, it's kind of like peeling back the onion. For a lot of folks, people ask, like, how does that work? Sounds too good to be true. And, a lot of things do if we're not aware of it, right?
Yep, and it takes different times for different people because everyone is an individual. Glenn, what's the difference between, you've talked about this on this show, we've talked about it in the past. What's the difference between a bank and a life insurance company?
Wayne, really the name. Both of these entities, we've got to put money to work, that they take in. Money doesn't sit stagnant. If I was to ask our listeners here today, have you ever experienced financial pressure? Most of us have. I know I certainly have. And what if all we did was help you relieve financial stress? How would that make you feel? So it's a great opportunity to spend 60 minutes with us on October 8th and 14th on our online training. And, I'm going to show everyone how to create their own private reserve of capital. It's not as difficult as you think, especially when you've got a coach, and you'll be glad that you did. So I always like to say to people, Wayne, we've got a solution, and we're there just to educate and share this with as many people as we can.
Now, I asked this question of Steve, and I'm going to pose it to you, and it's a bit of a softball question, but I'd like to hear your response about it anyways. What would you say to our listeners right now who may be sitting on the fence about attending the Banker's Secret online live training sessions?
Wayne, I would say this. I'd say, are you worried about outliving your money? Did you know that half of retirees will run out of money, when we're in that phase of our life? And here are three major concerns most people, have with their retirement planning. First is outliving their retirement savings. No secret, we're living longer. That's probably one of the biggest risks, that I engage in conversation with people that they're most concerned about. Second, people are concerned, that they believe that tax rates, are only going to go up over time, right? We have no control of that. And third concern that most people have is the required minimum distributions, that they're will kick in, when they start accessing their RSPs or, the company pension plans and things like that. And, many seniors, are finding themselves in the highest tax bracket of their lives once they have to start withdrawing that money from, their RIF. It's just the opposite of the RSP. And the idea, that they'll also have to be paying taxes, on their CPP, on their old age security. And that's, even more reason, why people should join it. This is a powerful approach, for anyone's financial, portfolio. So our clients who have implemented these strategies have provided them with tax-free liquidity, access to their cash values, for everything, Wayne, from business capital to children's education to securing, their own retirement to paycheck. And, like Steve, our clients tell us all the time, that this strategy has provided them safety, from the market volatility. And it doesn't have to be just this year. I mean, markets just go up and down. I'm not suggesting for a second that, markets aren't a good place, but, most people I have a conversation with, they feel much better, where their money is, in a safe place, it's predictable, and they can count on it's going to be there.
All right, Glenn, I got one final question for you here, and then we'll have to wrap things up. Is it fair to say that most people just don't understand money and they get frustrated trying to do it on their own, and they end up losing a good chunk of their life savings doing so? I mean, you think about it, is investing and taking on risk the only way a person can try to get ahead?
Well, no, Wayne, and good question. And so finances, can be confusing for most of us. And, we have a three-step process, where our clients can be confident in all of their financial decisions, because I believe everyone deserves to understand finances. There are only two ways to improve your present financial position. One is to find better products than those that you have now, and they may potentially pay higher rates of return and often requires more risk. And the second way is to be more efficient by avoiding unnecessary losses. So everyone is in the banking business, like I mentioned earlier, and for most people, they're just not good at it, at least for now. So for whatever reason, we've just been taught about, one way to do banking. And, the live online training is just going to teach people a totally different way that they can be in control of their money.
Sure. And it's an option. It's an alternate way of doing things. And in 60 minutes, you can discover the banker's secret and how it really works.